It's time for another exciting edition of the Sports Desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle. Stay tuned as we discuss local and national sports from Southeast Missouri and beyond. And now, without further ado, let's get on with the show. The Sports Desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle is brought to you by Royal Retros. If you like cool throwback jerseys of defunct sports teams, Royal Retros is the place to buy. If you go to royalretros.com and you order with the code SPORTSDESK, all one word, you can get a little bit off your order. So check out Royal Retros. And now on with the Sports Desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle. And welcome to another exciting edition of the Sports Desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle. I'm Mike Bueller.
I'm Mark Sanders.
And Kyle is out today. He is running an important errand, but we have got an exciting show because in addition to talking about the St. Louis Cardinals, who have not had a good week, Cameron Meisner, the NBA Finals and the Stanley Cup Finals, we have got a special guest on the show today. I am going to be visiting in a little bit with Advance and Three Rivers College former basketball player and alumnus and current Gulf Coast State College coach Lane Ballou. Been wanting to have Lane on the show for a while, and he is going to be with us today. So stay tuned for that. But right now, we are going to talk a little bit of baseball, and we are going to talk a little bit about the St. Louis Cardinals, who, after having a really great stretch, have ran into a little bit of a wall. Mark, take her away.
Yeah, one of the things that you can usually count on in baseball is a regression to the mean in terms of the way that teams play. I don't think that anyone saw this Cardinals team as being much better than a 500 team, and we're seeing that regression to the mean here over the past couple of weeks. Starting with the headline, they dropped a 3-game series at home to the Toronto Blue Jays. Now, Toronto's no slouch. They are currently sitting atop the American League wild card standings, and in the AL East, they are sitting only 4 games behind the division-leading New York Yankees. So Toronto was going to be a tough team no matter what. But the Cardinals held a 4-3 lead in the ninth inning of their first game against the Blue Jays, and then their bullpen coughed it up, which is a familiar tune to Cardinals fans. They lost a slugfest in which Miles Mikolas once again could not help himself from giving up a plethora of runs, and then Matthew Liberatore continued his hard luck pitching in giving up a 5-2 loss on Wednesday, and that is a series sweep for Toronto. But more concerning, looking back over the past 2 weeks, they started off a road trip, 6-game road trip on a good note by taking 2 out of 3 at Baltimore. They then traveled down to Arlington, Texas, and proceeded to lose 2 out of 3 to the Rangers. The only game that they won was a 2-0 shutout victory in which Sonny Gray picked up his 6th win of the season, but they dropped the other 2 by tallies of 11-1 and 8-1. So they were not really competitive against the Rangers. They came home, and then there was what I consider an absolutely inexcusable series loss to the Kansas City Royals, and both of their losses were bad losses in which they coughed up leads. Again, 2 of my least favorite pitchers on the Cardinal staff, Steven Matz and Matthew Liberatore, both took losses in that series loss against Kansas City. And then you think, okay, here come the Dodgers. The Cardinals win 2 out of 3 against the Dodgers. The only one they lost was against Clayton Kershaw. No embarrassment in that, although the Cardinals usually play pretty well against Kershaw. But just tallying up the last 2 weeks, we've got 4 wins against 8. So 4-8 in the last 12 games of the past 2 weeks. That is definitely trending in the wrong direction. So as we take a look at the standings, In the National League Central, the Cardinals are still bunched up with the Brewers and the Reds. The Pirates are, as usual, irrelevant before the All-Star break. The Cubs are going to run away with the National League Central. They can go ahead and design their 2005 NL Central champion pennants right now to hang up in Wrigley. They have an absolutely jaw-dropping run differential of plus 103, which again only trails the New York Yankees by 3 runs. The Yankees have a plus 106 run differential. So purely as a neutral observer, I would think the Yankees-Cubs World Series would be really interesting and probably fairly entertaining, but we're not going to get that far ahead of ourselves. But the Cardinals are still 4 games above 500, 36 and 32, so the sky is not falling. They still have a positive run differential, although that has dropped significantly over the past couple of weeks. More concerning is where they stand in the wild card race, because again, from where I sit, they're not going to catch the Cubs this season. So their only hope for the postseason is in the wild card, and they're currently sitting 2.5 games out of that third place spot, which is currently being held by the San Diego Padres. The Giants and the Phillies hold the 1 and 2 spots in there. So they're still within shouting distance of a wild card spot, but again, they're moving in the wrong direction. They have a 4-game losing streak. They've gone 3-7 in their last 10 games. So, what can we say looking ahead for the Cardinals? Well, they have a huge series at Milwaukee beginning tonight. It's a 4-game series against the Brewers. The Brewers are only a half game out in the loss column. They have the same number of wins as the Redbirds do. I like our chances tonight against Sonny Gray. Our only consistent starting pitcher is going up, so that's looking good. Then we've got Fedde and Palante. Flip a coin. That really depends on whether our offense can score enough runs for them. But then the series finale against Milwaukee, we've got Miles Mikolas. That doesn't look good. And then after Milwaukee, we stay in the northern part of the Midwest. We head to the south side of Chicago to take on the White Sox. And that should be a series sweep. The White Sox are a woeful team. You have to, at the very least, split the series against Milwaukee and then take 2 out of 3 against Chicago. The end of next week, we come home for a 3-game weekend series against the Cincinnati Reds. And then the big bad Chicago Cubs come into town for a 4-game series running from Monday, June 23rd through Thursday, June 26th. So then the past 2 weeks have not looked good for the Cardinals. The next 2 weeks are going to determine whether they are contenders or pretenders in terms of having an actual chance to make the Major League Baseball playoffs this season.
Indeed, it's going to be interesting. It's I got my tongue tangled here. Big games coming up. Mark, tell me a little bit about Cameron Meisner, how he's doing lately.
Well, I don't have good news for you. He's not doing well. His average has dipped since the last time we talked to 218. He's still sitting at 5 home runs, 18 RBIs. I don't know. I don't know how, I don't follow the Rays. I don't really follow American League Baseball, so it's really hard to say how the manager and coaching staff feel about Cameron. It's hard to tell just looking at the stats, what he's contributing to the defense out there in center field. Someone who is just a huge defensive stopper, someone with a big arm. You could probably tolerate a batting average in the low to mid 200s, but I would say right now he really just needs to focus on making contact and putting the ball in play. If you can do that, you could probably buy a few hits, maybe even try bunting and legging out some infield singles. What he needs more than anything is just hits and walks and getting on base, because right now, just looking at the stats, what they tell us is that he's not really making a contribution to the offense. And again, taking a look at the standings out in the American League East, Tampa is sitting 6 games behind the Yankees, 2 behind Toronto. They have an identical record to the Cardinals, by the way, at 36 and 32. And then looking at the American League wild card, they're currently sitting in the 3rd position. So as of today, they are a playoff team. And so when you're looking at the Rays roster, what they really need are competitive players to help contribute to a playoff push. And it's I definitely would like to see him play a full season for the Rays, but he's going to have to turn something around here pretty soon, because if he doesn't, I think the next destination for him is the bench, and after that, it's probably back to AAA.
It'll be interesting. One thing, though, I will say is he has been doing a lot on defense. I think he's only made 1 error this season. He's thrown a couple of guys out on the base pass, so I think he's doing a lot with his defense. I think that's one reason he's been playing some. Plus, he's got some good speed when he does get on. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And that is the first segment of our show. When we come back, I will be visiting with Lane Ballou, and then when we get done visiting with Lane, we'll be talking a little bit of NBA Finals and Stanley Cup Finals. You are listening to the Sports Desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle. And welcome back to the Sports Desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle. I'm Mike Bueller, and I am excited to have as our guest this week on the podcast former Advance and Three Rivers basketball alumnus Lane Ballou, who has went on to have some pretty nice success in the junior college coaching world. Lane, welcome to the show.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me.
Lane, you are the head coach at Gulf Coast State College in Panama City, Florida. Very, very beautiful place.
It's not a bad place to live. I've enjoyed it a lot.
Good deal. And you had a pretty good first year at the helm of the Commodores. Tell me a little bit about that.
I was obviously super grateful and excited to get the job. I was in the league for 2 years at Chipola, so I knew how tough the league was, and I thought it was a really, really good job. And fortunately, I got it. And, we had to basically sign a whole new team when I got the job. And we signed 12 new guys, kept 1 guy from the previous squad, and went to bat with all these guys. And so I thought we had a solid year. Obviously we fell a little bit short of some of our goals. We ended up finishing second in the Panhandle Conference. We finished runner-up in the region title and missed Hutch basically by a game. So we've got some stuff to build off of. Obviously disappointed we didn't finish at Hutch, but got some positive things to build off of, and I think that's been reflected in our recruiting this offseason. It's definitely helped out for sure.
Good deal. And you play, in Florida, which is Region 8, and, the Florida, I can't think of the name of the conference, but basically it's like the junior college basketball version of SEC football. What's it like playing in that league?
It's really tough, man. I mean, it's a great comparison that you made there. I mean, we've got 5 teams in our conference. It's called the Panhandle Conference, and all 5 teams last year were ranked in the top 25. And so, every single night you can be beat. It's going to be an absolute war every single night. Fortunately, we finished up, pretty positively, but we actually started kind of slow. We were 1-3 in Panhandle play to start, and had lost a few games. Lost at Chipola by 3, lost at home in overtime, lost another one by 5 or 6 points, and so we were knocking on the door, but just had to kind of shore some things up to get over the hump, and we ended up winning, I think it was 6 in a row, and had some pretty good success down the stretch. But it can be grueling in a sense too, man. Nobody's going to let you up. You've got to dig yourself out. So, but it's good. I thought it definitely prepared us for postseason basketball, heading into the region tournament for sure.
Definitely. And tell me a little bit about what you've got coming in for this upcoming season that starts in November.
As far as players,
Yes.
we've added a good mix. We've added some really good high school prep guys. I think with Division One going from 13 scholarships to 15, it's impacted us in some different ways. You know, it's given some guys some opportunities that may have been junior college guys a few years ago, and then it's also probably given us some better high school quality players too than we've had in the past. So we've been fortunate. I think we've signed some good prep high school type guys that I think can impact right away. And then we've signed a couple transfer guys, one from Chipola that was runner up for player of the year. Trent Lincoln was a really nice player. And then we signed another kid from South Plains, Devontae Cobbs. Their coach had left and went to Arkansas State as an assistant, so he was available and signed him. I think he could be a really good player in the league and throughout the country. And then we've got a couple good returners too, Jason McCullough and a couple other guys as well. So I'm excited. We've still got a couple scholarships left to fill. I always try kind of hold a few to see if somebody falls through the cracks or something happens late in Division One. So we're going to start summer school next week. We'll have 8 or 9 guys on campus, and then we'll kind of fill the rest of the team throughout the summer.
Indeed. And, one thing I said earlier, Lane's got some pretty legit roots in Southeast Missouri, grew up in Advance, got to play for a pretty legit coach in Bubba Wheatley. And, I'm going to start off, tell me a little bit about growing up in Advance, playing there and playing for Bubba.
Yeah, super small town. Everybody knows everybody, which can be good and bad. But, you grow up, and I had 5 or 6 of my best friends super close with. And, Bubba had coached us actually. It helped out, basically from junior high on. He was kind of an assistant. And then my senior year, he ended up getting the head job. And we had a good solid season, ups and downs. But we ended up winning the district title and won our sectional game. And unfortunately, we got beat in the Elite Eight on a buzzer beater the game before Columbia. So, but had a solid year, and obviously he was, ultra successful after that year and did a great job at Advance. And very appreciative of Bubba. Still talk to him quite a bit, and very thankful for all he did for me.
And a bit of cool trivia for our listeners. Bubba is coming back to coaching. He is going to again be coaching the Hornets starting this upcoming season.
Yep.
And then you went from Advance to Three Rivers and got to play for, an absolutely legendary coach, a Naismith Hall of Famer in Gene Best. Tell me about that.
It was awesome, man. I mean, I really wanted to go down there. Even as a kid, I was 5th, 6th grade going to camps all the time at Three Rivers. Loved being around it. Loved going to the games. Was just always super impressed with how they did things, even as a young guy. And so I wanted to go there, and fortunately, I got an opportunity there, and I learned a lot while I was there. I actually, got to take a basketball coaching techniques class with Coach Gene and learned a lot there. I still have my book that we had to do kind of a binder book, basically all drill work and just breaking down our philosophy and all facets of basketball and our coaching style. And so that was cool. And just, looking back on it now, you maybe didn't even appreciate it as much then as you do now, but a lot of things that I learned there I'm still using today, and definitely very appreciative that Coach Gene gave me an opportunity, and just getting to learn from him was really cool.
Lane, bit of fun trivia. I took that same coaching class, and the weird thing is it was in that class that I got my first inspiration to become a sports writer, because I did a scouting report, which is one of the assignments we've always done in that class. And
Right.
Coach Best read the scouting report and said, "You should become a sports writer." And about a year and a half later, that's exactly what I did. It ended up covering the Raiders on and off for many years.
Wow, that's big time. I mean, I always say this. I don't know if there's anything, obviously we're very fortunate to work in the sports world. I don't even feel like it's a real job, to be honest, but what is there in life that brings people together like sports? Like it just different races, different backgrounds, different religions, whatever it may be, it brings everybody together for a common goal, and I think that's one of the things I really enjoy about it too.
Lane, that's a great thought. And then after Three Rivers, you went, to the SEC and played 2 years at Ole Miss. Tell me a bit about that.
Another great experience. I got to play under Andy Kennedy, who's now the head coach at UAB. And just able, honestly, went there, and former Three Rivers guy Eustace was there, and it was just a great experience, man, getting to play against the very best players in the country, getting to see the very best coaches in the country, just how basically everything was done at the highest level. And so another great stop in my journey of, how to do things at a higher level from a coaching standpoint and a scouting standpoint and recruiting, the whole deal, man. You just kind of got to learn and absorb all that you could, and that's definitely helped me out in a lot of ways today too, especially on the recruiting side of things.
Cool deal. Lane, when did you decide you wanted to be a coach?
Probably in high school. I didn't know quite what level I wanted to be at, but honestly, when I got to Three Rivers, I knew I wanted to be in college coaching, and I think it was just seeing how good the players were at Three Rivers and Coach Gene Buss, and just being around all those guys and how high level it was even there, and just in high school you have people playing that may not necessarily love the game, but they're playing because it's a high school sport. At college, you're kind of getting to recruit and handpick your team, if you will, and I love that facet of the game, and so probably Three Rivers was when I decided I wanted to do college, but I knew I wanted to coach from high school on. When I was in high school, I knew I wanted to be a coach eventually.
Lane, I remember back about 10 years ago running into you at Three Rivers, and I remember walking away with the impression he's going to coach someday. So I kind of saw it too.
Yeah, no doubt. No, I've been ate up with it for a while now.
Cool deal. Is there anything else you'd like to add on this segment?
No, man, I just appreciate you having me on. Thank you very much. It's been great, getting to know you over the last however many years it's been now. I guess it has been over 10 years, but I appreciate you having me on. I really do.
Sounds great. And that was Gulf Coast State College coach and Southeast Missouri native Lane Ballou. And you have been listening to the Sports Desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle. We will be back in a bit. And we are back with Sports Desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle. And now me and Mark are going to talk a little bit about the NBA Finals and the Stanley Cup Finals. First of all, the Pacers and the Thunder took their series back to Indiana last night, and the Pacers ended up pulling out the win, and they have a 2-1 lead in the series. Mark, what are your thoughts?
I think that Indiana is going to be celebrating their first league championship in a couple of games. I'm not saying OKC can't pull this out, but Indiana just has the secret sauce this year. I mean, it doesn't matter how many points they're down in the second half. When the fourth quarter rolls around, they just take over these games. And, OKC is going to have to figure out how to win 3 out of the next 4 games.
Yeah.
Including one more, at least one more on the road, coming up on Saturday. No, excuse me, on Friday.
Yeah.
Got my dates wrong. Yeah, coming up on Friday. If Indiana wins another game at home and they're up 3-1, it's over. I mean, it's over with, and they have all the confidence. Oklahoma City should have been the favorite in this. They've got the league MVP. They've got a powerhouse team that has, moved pretty easily through the Western Conference Finals. But I just think the Pacers look like the team of destiny. Now, maybe the next week, will prove me wrong here. But all signs point to the Pacers celebrating a championship. Probably, I would say if I had to predict, I would say they go up 3-1 after tomorrow night. They go back to Oklahoma City. The Thunder wins, making it a 3-2 game, and then they go back to Indiana for Game 6, and then we've got a celebration at home. So that is my prediction. All predictions guaranteed to go wrong. Your mileage may vary for entertainment purposes only, and as always, please, no wagering.
It's going to be interesting, and I agree with you. I think tomorrow night is going to tell a lot about how the series is going to go. If the Pacers do hold serve and win at home tomorrow night, it is going to be very hard for the Thunder to come back. If the Thunder win tomorrow night, they've got a good chance to end up pulling the series out because they will have home court advantage back. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
And
I'd say if OKC wins tomorrow night, we're looking at a 7-game series.
I could see that, and that's a good prediction. Speaking of interesting series, Game 4 of the Stanley Cup Finals are tonight, and the Florida Panthers have a 2-1 lead in the series. Mark, what are your thoughts?
Well, and it's the same kind of situation where Edmonton really needs to win this game on the road tonight. Otherwise, they go down 3-1. Now, they are going back to Edmonton for Game 5, but you're still in the same situation where you have to win 3 out of the 4 games, whereas if Florida goes up 3-1, they only have to win 1 out of the next 4. So, to me, if I'm part of the Oilers organization, it is absolutely all hands on deck, must-win game. And as Tuck told last week, talking about this finals, Florida is just such a physically dominating team. You really have to ask yourselves whether Edmonton is going to be able to match their physicality, especially in front of that Florida net. But it's got to be all hands on deck for the Oilers, or we're going to continue this long streak of the Stanley Cup staying here in the States instead of going back up to the Great White North.
Take off, eh?
You hoser.
When you said Great White North, I couldn't resist.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's what what it's looked like in the last 2 games. Again, to talk about Florida's physical play, they've taken over the series by physically dominating Edmonton. So it just remains to be seen whether Edmonton can match that physicality or not. If they can, especially if they can get McDavid and some of their other scorers free, they have to, they can score enough goals to pull the game out. Their goaltender is going to have to stand on his head out there on the ice, though, to make sure that they don't give up a big lead early on in the game. Because if the Panthers get any sort of momentum, it's going to be really hard for the Oilers to come back. And I don't see them recovering from a 3-1 deficit. So I think tonight's game is really going to tell the tale of the entire series. So just like with Pacers, if Florida goes up 3-1, you can pretty much mark the series as ended. If Edmonton can tie it up 2-2 and go back home, then they've got a chance to win at home. And then even if they lose on the road Game 6, they've got a chance to win Game 7. So same sort of prediction. Florida goes up 3-1, it's over. Edmonton ties it at 2-2. We're probably looking at a 7-game series.
It's going to be interesting. And before we talk a little bit about what little football news is going on right now, Mark, I believe, wants to give a shout out to one of our local teams that's done some nice things.
Yeah, congratulations to the Portageville Bulldogs boys varsity baseball team. They made it to the Final Four in the Class 3 varsity baseball state tournament. Unfortunately, they lost their semifinal matchup against Fair Grove. Dropped that game 3-0, so they dropped down into the consolation bracket, where they defeated Holden in that third place game by a score of 7-4. So Portageville, third place in the state in Class 3. So congratulations to the Bulldogs on an outstanding season.
Indeed, and bit of cool trivia. I've been doing the sports writing thing long enough that back about 20 years ago, Portageville's coach Tyler Trover was a high school basketball and baseball player at Bernie, and I actually got to cover him. So that's kind of a coming full circle moment.
You're just telling on yourself about how old you are, Mike.
That's right, Eddie. I'm an old man.
Yeah, and Portageville finishes up the season with an outstanding 25-10 record. So, yeah, very impressive performance from the Bulldogs. So congratulations to everyone associated with that program.
I'll second that. Before we go, we always have to talk a little bit about the National Football League. It is kind of quiet right now, but I have been following a little bit of stuff going on with the Titans. You know, I know one of their undrafted free agents, I believe it's Xavier Restrepo or something like that. He was one of Cam Ward's favorite targets when he played at the University of Miami, and he has continued his success during minicamp, and he's made a really good impression. So that makes me feel a little bit better about the future of my guys. Mark, do you have anything?
I'll tell you a little bit about Tennessee. One of the Vikings podcasts that I listen to on a almost a daily basis is Purple Insider with Matthew Collar. And Collar is he's a podcaster, but he's also part of the Minnesota media environment that covers the Vikings on a regular basis. And on Monday nights, Collar has a podcast intern who comes on the show with him, and he has a brand new intern just over the past few weeks, and her name is Maggie Robinson. She is a former employee of the NFL. She's been involved with the NFL for the past several years, but she has gone back to school. She's getting a master's degree in sports communications so that she can become a broadcaster full time. And she is already availing herself very well. And I mentioned Maggie and Matthew because on their Monday night podcast this past week, her intern assignment was to assemble a number of hot takes. And one of her hot takes was that the Titans were she started out that the Titans were going to have a winning season, and she got some pushback on that, saying, well, they're going to be better than they were. And I think that's actually the case. You know, they only won 3 games last season. I think 6 is a reasonable expectation, but I think if Ward really catches on as their quarterback there, that they might be able to eke out 7 or even 8 wins. We know that the AFC South is really weak. I think that the Colts are just going to be dreadful this season. Some Colts news: Anthony Richardson is once again out with injury. So for the time being, Daniel Jones, formerly of the New York Giants, and a cup of coffee on the practice squad with the Minnesota Vikings, is penciled in as the Colts starting quarterback. You never know what you're going to get in Jacksonville. They've got a new coaching staff. They had a good draft. They still have Trevor Lawrence, and I think that Lawrence is a talented quarterback. I think that his talents have been squandered by a bad coaching staff over the past few years, but you just never know what you're going to get with Jacksonville. So, I think the Titans have a real shot to climb out of the basement and maybe even compete for second place in the AFC South. If I were a Titans fan, as you are, Mike, I think that there would be reason to hope this season that they'll be back on the upswing.
I think there is. It's going to be interesting, but I think we got a chance. And as long-suffering as we've been the last couple of seasons, that would definitely be some good news.
Yeah. We do also have some news out of Vikings land. Minnesota signed their tight end to Josh Oliver to a 3-year contract extension worth around the neighborhood of $23 million. Oliver was signed a couple years ago as a free agent from the Baltimore Ravens. He was touted as a run blocking tight end, which he does quite excellently. But he has also emerged, especially last season with Sam Darnold at the helm of the offense. He emerged as a pretty consistent pass catcher. So now he is a dual threat tight end. And, one of the things that has been reported out of Vikings minicamp this week is how strong J.J. McCarthy is looking with intermediate throws over the middle. Now that was something that Darnold was not good at. He was not comfortable throwing the ball into the middle of the field. He did not have the same touch on those intermediate range passes. If you're looking for a definition, we're talking the intermediate passes are like anywhere from 7 to 20 yards in that range. Now, if you're thinking, what is the benefit of that? If you'll look back at the games that the Vikings lost last season, and again, the Vikings only lost to two teams all season, the Detroit Lions and the Los Angeles Rams, and you look at how those teams beat the Vikings, and it was with those passes down the middle of the field. Jared Goff hitting Amon-Ra St. Brown or Jake Laporta, their own tight end, in the range of about 10 to 15 yards down the middle, just gobbling up yards. And so that is looking really promising. McCarthy's been praised for his arm strength, for the zip on the ball, for his intermediate accuracy. And, the Vikings are going to be able to do a lot with their offense if that is the case, because, really what we're looking at is probably a stronger running game behind a much improved offensive line. And so that gives you a lot to do with the run pass option. The other thing that the Vikings, this is the way that I think the Vikings are going to look the most different, is that while McCarthy is not what you would classify as a running quarterback, certainly not like, I always blank out on these names, right, Lamar Jackson or Hurts in Philadelphia. We're not looking at that, but he is very mobile. He's very talented at rolling out with the ball and throwing on the run, and his arm has a reputation for being just as accurate on the run as when he's in the pocket. So I think as the run game shows signs of success, I think you'll also see McCarthy using his mobility probably on some set plays, but also on plays where the pocket breaks down and he needs to move around. So this is looking good. They'll have Josh Oliver along with TJ Hawkinson for those intermediate routes, and then you've also, of course, got Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and Jalen Naylor. I mean, the Vikings offense is loaded up with weapons. Now, one of the other things that we've seen in minicamp is that JJ has thrown a couple of interceptions, mainly on out routes to the sideline. It's minicamp. They're running 7-on-7s. You can't really say with any sort of certainty. But the one thing that we can say about McCarthy coming out of OTAs and minicamp is that he is going to be the Vikings starting quarterback, and all signs are pointing in the direction of him having a successful season. And then one more word out of Vikings OTAs, not yesterday, but Tuesday, Christian Darrisaw participated in individual drills during minicamp. He had a huge brace on that injured knee, that left knee, where he tore an ACL and an MCL in the regular season game against the Rams in Los Angeles. It just unfortunately lost for the season, on a handoff right before halftime. It was just one of those really unfortunate sort of plays. Now, there was some question as to whether Darrisaw was going to be ready for the first game of the season. There was even some question about whether he would be ready to participate at training camp later on in the summer. But his appearance Tuesday at minicamp, moving around pretty good, even with the brace. But I imagine he's going to wear that brace, or probably some kind of brace, throughout the entire season, not just the big Terminator cyborg looking one that he's wearing right now. But I mean, obviously you want to take every precaution. But Christian Darrisaw is certainly one of the best 2 or 3 left tackles in the entire NFL, and having him healthy and protecting JJ's blind side, starting out from game 1 on the road against the Chicago Bears, who still have a pretty good defense. They've got a good pass rush. If you're going to make a real playoff run this season, you need a healthy Christian Darrisaw. And so that gives Vikings fans another reason for hope, seeing CD71 out there on the field. And that's about all I've got from minicamp. Just to say that everything seems to be moving in a good direction. And so far, all the news coming out of the TCO Performance Center in Eagan, Minnesota, is good news. So let's just hope that it carries on through the rest of the summer into training camp and the start of the season.
Rooting for good news for your guys and rooting for good news for my guys.
Yep.
Skol Vikings and tighten up. And on that note, we are wrapping up another edition of the Sports Desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle. I'm Mike Bueller.
I'm Mark Sanders.
And you have been listening to the Sports Desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle.